is your bridge to the land and people of Israel.
God's will.
Well, I just learned recently that Gilgal is actually down in Gaza, and several times the patriarchs went down to Gilgal, down to the Gaza Strip. So there's been Jewish presence in the Gaza Strip for many, many, many centuries. So this kind of leads me to my next question. Let's say, hypothetically, the Gazans relocate and they go live in Jordan or Egypt or Saudi Arabia or wherever they move to, Iran even, or Syria. And so now the Gaza Strip is vacated, but we still have the problem of the radicalized communities, Arab and Palestinian communities within the biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria. In Hurawa, there's been a lot of attacks against Jewish people, murders. And then in Jenin, there's been problems there. And then in Shechem, I'm not sure how to say it, Nablus, issues there. So what do you think should happen now to the biblical heartland if Israel is able to somehow get all the Arabs out of the Gaza Strip and perhaps annex it, take it back? What about the biblical heartland? That's like having cancer within the heart of a body. What are your thoughts there?
So hard as it is to believe, it's actually more radical here in Judea, Samaria, and the biblical heartland than it is in Gaza. 85% of the Arabs here support what happened on October 7th. 85%. And look, I live here in Judea, right? I live a few hundred yards from Bethlehem, from hundreds of thousands of Arabs, many of whom, 85% of whom would like to see me and my family dead. So this is a very real thing, right? Gaza, I think, sometimes feels further away for people. If you don't live in the south, if you don't, but here, the biblical heartland, it goes all the way from this, from Hebron and all the way up north into Samaria. There's like essentially no part of Israel that isn't within a short drive of Judea and Samaria. And so this is even more fundamental and more significant than the Gaza question, hard as that is to believe. And I think Israel, at this point understands that we cannot allow Hamas to set up shop here in the way that they did in Gaza. Look, it's a very, very real thing. When you think about these 85%, we talk about numbers, but I'll just give you an example. Right outside of the gate into my town here in Efrat, when you drive out of the gate, you immediately, there's like a few different illegal Arab buildings that are up against the gate, sort of like spread over from Bethlehem, and they were built there because they want to get Jewish business, right? When you come right out of the gate of Efrat, you can, there's a car wash and there's a store with a hardware store and things like that, and it's really, they're right there. Now, apparently there's a guy there who runs the car wash who's been doing it for many years. People have gone for years to that car wash. But somebody went, this was already a few months ago, they went and they interviewed him, and he was very open. And he said, and he was very clear about how he supports the struggle against the Jews, meaning struggle against the Jews is code for rape, murder, beheading, burning 40 babies alive, right? That's what he's talking about. This is the guy who's been getting Jewish business for years, who owns the car wash that is like literally less than a mile from my home and right outside of the gate of the community, right? So when my wife goes to the supermarket, right, most of the people working there are Arabs. Now, I'm sure some of them are good people, but I have no doubt by the percentages that many of them, when they're looking at us like and with death in their eyes, meaning they may not be courageous enough to pull out a knife and kill us, but they certainly applaud when somebody else does. Ari Fuld, who is a true hero, an American who moved to Israel, and he lived here in the neighborhood. He was killed in the parking lot of our supermarket because an Arab kid, like a 16-year-old terrorist, came and stabbed him in the back. And so that's what we're surrounded by. Just so people understand, these communities are not far from each other, right? We're intertwined in many ways. And so it's really, really frightening. There's a movement now in Israel to no longer hire Arab workers in Judea and from Judea and Samaria, certainly not from Gaza. Those Arab workers in Gaza were the spies for Hamas that helped them slaughter the communities where they worked for all those years, right? They were friends with the Jews there, and they helped. And in the communities bordering Gaza, and they had maps that they gave to the people, to the Hamas terrorists, and showed them exactly where to go to kill the Jews who had employed them all those years. So here in Efrat and in towns all across Israel, there's a movement. In Hebrew, it's called Avodah Ivrit, which means Hebrew labor, Jewish labor, that it's time to not outsource these kinds of construction jobs and things like that anymore. And people are very serious about this. And if that means that economically the Arabs are going to suffer, well, too bad. Frankly, I'm not putting my family's life at risk to help people who 85% of whom would like to see me and my family dead. I don't think there's any obligation to employ these people. Frankly, they're welcome to either reject terrorism or get the hell out of the country. I don't know how else to say it. I think that's the choice. And somehow, whatever good Arabs there are, they've got to separate from the radicalized ones, find a way to separate themselves and make that clear. And if they do, they'll be embraced with unbelievable love by the Jewish people. All the Jews want are Arabs who want peace. They're like so desperate for Arabs who want peace, and they'll give them jobs, and it'll be amazing. It'll be wonderful. But everybody else, they've got to go also. Now, practically, how is that going to happen? Right? Bibi would say that's not realistic. And so I think our job in the meantime, you're right, it's not realistic. But our job in the meantime is that the people of Israel themselves must come to this consciousness, this awareness that we cannot allow ourselves to be surrounded by enemies who want to kill us, and that we have to fight like David did. Another article I wrote many months ago, way before October 7th, but that I think we need to be fighting the way David did. Right? David befriended those non-Jews who wanted to be his friends and gave them great love and great honor. I think we need to do a better job of embracing those who are our friends, but we also need to be like David and be much harsher against our enemies who wish us harm. Right? So we have to be on both sides. I think we need to be like David and learn that lesson. So once the people of Israel themselves fully grasp this and the government comes around and reflects the will of the people, I think what is unrealistic today will be realistic tomorrow.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. I just wonder, I'm thinking out loud here, if at some point in the future, if the Israeli government ever decides to annex all of the biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria, annex it, take sovereignty over that as well as Gaza, and then any Arabs that want to live peacefully as an Israeli citizen with good intentions can stay, and Arabs that have a problem with that can leave. Do you think that might ever be a possibility in the future?
That is absolutely the goal, right? I think that if we can ever get to that point where the 85% leave and the 15% who are decent people and want to, pledge loyalty to the state of Israel and they stay, I think they should be given citizenship at that point. Right? That we cannot do that now. It would be national suicide to give citizenship to a population that wants to kill us. And that should never, ever happen. But whenever that day comes, right, like I said, there's absolutely a place for righteous Gentiles, and they don't need to be Jews. Absolutely don't need to be. And we would welcome them and embrace them. But that's 100% the goal. And I think part of this movement to stop employing people who want to kill us, right, is intended to help encourage these people to leave. Right, the vast majority of these people came for economic reasons. Back in the 50s and 60s, right, the population of Judea and Samaria, this Palestinian nation, it doesn't really exist. They never existed in history. They're mostly Egyptians, Syrians, Iraqis. They came because there were better economic opportunities, especially once Israel won the 6-Day War and took over and brought peace to the region, and the economy started building up. So all these people came. Well, now they don't deserve to be here anymore, and so they should leave. And we should not be offering people jobs if their goal is to hurt us. It sounds so simple, but somehow Israel is struggling with that, and the United States is getting in the way. They're trying to put the kibosh on bringing in tens of thousands of Indian workers to replace the Arab workers. And America is getting in the way of that right now. It's as we speak. It's a great tragedy.
Well, I hope that we have a change in administration come November when we have the elections, because I know the Biden administration has not been a good friend to Israel the way it was under Trump. But this is all, I'm happy to hear your thoughts on this. The last thing I wanted to bring up is there's something called keepisraelsland.com, and it's a
Keep
movement
God's
about
land.
sovereignty.
Keep God's land.
Keepgodsland.com. And there was recently a sovereignty conference, I believe, in Jerusalem, and they talked about this issue. Can you share more about this keepgodsland.com initiative, and how Christians throughout the nations can stand with and support Israel in this fight?
Absolutely. So thank you for asking. The one of the key question that's facing Israel right now, as you mentioned earlier, is that the Biden administration and other nations around the world are putting immense pressure on Israel about this two-state solution. Now, two-state solution, it sounds very nice, right? Two states, and it's a solution, right? It sounds like a good thing, but we call it here the two-state delusion. If we were to give a state to the Palestinians, to the Arabs, in Judea and Samaria, right, we would essentially be signing our own death sentence. Like as we said before, Judea Samaria is 9 miles from Tel Aviv. It's in the midst of all the Israeli population centers. And we saw what happened when we essentially gave a state to the Arabs in Gaza. They turned it into a terror state, a state from hell. And that's exactly what would happen if we would do the same thing here. And yet Biden and all of those who were promoting this two-state solution, this delusion, they don't seem to care about facts, about Israeli lives, about Jewish lives, because it would certainly lead to October 7th on a far worse scale. And so Keep God's Land is a joint movement that's being launched right now as we speak, of Christians and Jews who are dedicated to helping the people of Israel keep God's land, keep its biblical heartland. And there's so many reasons for it on a security level, as I just mentioned. Biblically, God's will, right? God says in the book of Joel, right, towards the end of the book of Joel, that I will judge the nations, right, that seek to divide my land at the valley of Jehoshaphat. This is no small thing, right? The fact that Biden is seeking to divide God's land, I'm afraid will bring terrible judgment upon the United States of America. This is a very, very significant problem. And yet you might be shocked. I'm not sure. You'll tell me if you're shocked. But there was a recent survey that showed that 82% of Christians in America support the two-state solution. Now, how is that possible? I think it's possible, first of all, because frankly, most Christians in America probably don't know where Judea and Samaria are, wouldn't be able to locate them on the map, and don't really have any understanding education on the issue. That's number one. Number two, it sounds good, right? Two-state solution. If you ask somebody who doesn't really know anything about it, right, it sounds, very logical and lovely that 2 nations, 2 states, and that's a solution. It sounds wonderful. So this is a real problem. I mean, this is the people of Israel, Jews and Arabs are all, mass majorities of Israel are against the two-state solution, and a great majority of Arabs are against the two-state solution. It's the height of arrogance for the Biden administration to try to shove a solution down our throats that nobody wants, and which is not a solution. And so we are launching this movement. We have really incredible Christian leaders who are leading it. Mischel Bachman is very much at the head of it, and Pastor Larry Huck, and many others. And actually, our launch event is coming up in 2 weeks from tomorrow. It'll be in Nashville, Tennessee, at the NRB conference, the National Religious Broadcasters Conference, which is very exciting. So February 22nd, I believe, that Thursday, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So if anyone is in Nashville or anywhere near the area wants to come, there's no cost for joining, but you do need to sign up and make sure you get a ticket before they sell out.
So
that evening, actually, President Trump is speaking 2 hours later. So at the NRB conference. So it should be quite an event, and we'll have Minister Gila Gamliel, the Minister of Intelligence in the Israeli government. She's going to be there as well, and she'll be speaking, and probably Ambassador Friedman as well. So it's going to be quite a gathering and quite a movement. So if anyone is able to join, we'd love for them to join. But first and foremost, go to keepgodsland.com and check it out and sign up and get on the newsletter and join the movement.
Okay, and what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description box below with more details about this event that you talked about that's happening in Nashville in a couple of weeks. Awesome. And is there, when you go to keepgodsland.com, is there, you can sign a petition or get your name on a petition and get on the newsletter list?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay,
You
great.
can sign up and get involved. And really the most important thing that people can do is help us educate.
Yes.
It's incredible. You know, you and I were talking, this is my life and this is your life too. I mean, you have dedicated yourself. We forget sometimes how much we know and how little, you know, the average person in America knows about this. And just, they're just not educated on the facts. And so
Yes.
the more that you can share, there are so many amazing videos there, just education about what's going on in Judea and Samaria. You know, the fact that there have been 5,600 terror attacks by Arabs against Jews in 2023 alone.
Wow.
5,600 in 1 year, just in Judea and Samaria. The effort that they're making, right, and how the European countries are joining this effort to help them take over Judea and Samaria and take it away from Israel. It's really it's incredible, and people are just not aware. So please
Yes.
share and join. We really appreciate it.
And you know, to me, a two-state solution is the height of insanity because in essence, it would be rewarding the Hamas horrific massacre. Oh, we're going to reward you with a two-state, with a Palestinian state. And actually, there have been leaders of Hamas who have come out and said, we don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution. And the one state is Palestine. Basically, they want to completely erase Israel. Israel would be no more, and they would genocide all the Jews. That's their solution. They don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution. And it's not about land. It's about they want to kill the Jews. So I'm so
and that's
glad.
just the beginning. That's just the beginning. I think what your listeners need to realize is that on many Palestinian flags, in Arabic, it's written first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people. First, we're going to kill the Jews, and then we're going to kill the Christians. And that's very much their goal. Israel is simply the front, right? That's where the battle is happening in this particular moment. But if they can overrun Israel, it's the end of Europe, it's the end of America, it's the end of it all. And so, you know, this really is a war that we're fighting together, that we must fight together. And we have to awaken, you know, I think that finally the Jews of America are awoken. Just finally, with everything that's happened, you know, and all the anti-Semitism and so on, they've finally woken up. I do wonder, I don't know if the Christian community in America has woken up just yet. And I think it's our job is, you know, to help wake people up before it's too late, because the battle is coming to America as well, and we've got to stand up, right? I mean, we say in Isaiah, right, for the sake of Zion, I will not be silent, right? For the sake of Jerusalem, I will not rest. And I think, you know, it's not just for the sake of Zion, it's not just for the sake of Jerusalem, it's also for the sake of, you know, all the towns in America that are called Zion and Jerusalem and have all those biblical names, because the fate of America, I know it seems crazy, but it is dependent on the war that we're fighting right now.
Yes, it is. And especially with our southern border and all the problems at the border, we've had 6 to 8 million invaders that have come in to the United States since the Biden administration took over. And you better believe that there are Hamas operatives in that mix, and as well as military age fighting men from China, from Russia, and from the Middle East. So it is our fight as well. It's so very, very important right now for Christians to stand with the Jewish people, with the nation of Israel, to stand in support, in prayer, in finances, in friendship, in every way that we can. And so I want to thank you so much, Elie, for sharing your thoughts with us. Do you have any final concluding thoughts you'd like to share?
Thank you so much for having me. I'll share one last point. I think that to highlight what we've just been saying, you know, it struck me that the people who are fighting against us, right, are a very odd combination of Islamic jihadists and, you know, secular progressives who are, right, what do they have in common with each other? Right? They've so little. Yet the one thing that they share in common is a hatred of the Bible, right? Islam does not accept the Bible, and the jihadists among Islam hate the Bible. And the same
they
thing
hate
is
the
true
God
of
of Israel.
Exactly. They hate the God of Israel, and so do the secular progressive who hate the God of Israel. And that's why you'll find in all the TV shows, all they do is take pleasure in trying to humiliate, you know, Orthodox Jews or or conservative Christians, people who actually take religion seriously, right? That's they're brought together because they have a shared hatred for the Bible. And so we, Jews and Christians, who are the people of the Bible, the people who believe in the Bible, we've got to set aside, it's a way past time, we've got to set aside all differences and focus on what binds us together, which is this shared common belief in the Bible and the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and stand together and fight, because we need all the help that we can get. We've got to stand together. So thank you everyone for standing together, and God willing, we'll overcome sooner than later and hear only good news.
Thank you so much, Elie, for joining us today, and we'll have to have you on again. Blessings to you.
Thank you so much.
Shalom.
Thank you. You as well.